Welcome to the Iron Grips podcast with myself, John, Coach Marco. This is our first episode, so hope you enjoy the conversation.
The intro that
It's more the intro bit. I'm terrible. Even when people like stop and go, okay, where can we get hold of you? I'm like, what? What, you want my address? Instagram, Facebook, all that shit. Yeah. And then I'm like, what's my Instagram name? I don't know.
Yeah.
So, dinosaur over here that forgets. I may post every day, doesn't mean to say I understand it. And I remember how people can get hold of me.
Yeah. Oh, that's also what I wanted to talk about, because you're a bit older than I am, but we have like almost the same amount of time.
A bit. I like that.
Just a bit.
Usually it's like, you're way older than
me.
No,
just a bit older than me.
For most people I talk to.
Well, because you're what, 41?
47.
Okay, maybe a little bit more older than me. And I'm gonna be 30.
Good though. I mean, I like it. If I can pass for 41, we're still doing all right. I'll take that.
Yeah. It's like my dad. He's like 40. He's gonna be 49 this month, and people are like, "You're like 40, right?" I'm like, vampire over here.
So if I started young, basically, I'm old enough to be your father. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just.
But we have the same amount of time in Jiu-Jitsu.
Episode 1 over. Let's just cut. Because now I can't concentrate. That's conjured up all sorts of stuff that I can't cope thinking about.
When I tell people are always like when I meet people who have been black belts for a long time, they're like, "Oh, you're already a black belt. You're so young. Like, well, how'd you do it?" I'm like, "Look, man, there's a lot of mileage on my bones. I've been doing this a long time."
Yeah, it's down to when you start, right? And that's the thing. Like, you can't, 10 to 15 years is 10 to 15 years. So if you started at 20, 15, 18, that's totally different than me starting at like 30. It's the same amount of years, but again, even those years within them will be very, very different. Like, people's jiu-jitsu journeys are so interesting. I was thinking about this on the way down, because there's two posts recently on social media. A couple of people I know, and one guy just got his black belt after being a brown for 4 years for many different reasons, and you're like, fucking hell, but he's been a brown for 4 years, a long time. Everyone has that one belt they're stuck at, or seems to be, for like what feels like ever. And then another good friend of mine back in the UK, you wouldn't have even known, never really thought about his jiu-jitsu level. He's been a high-level Cage Warriors fighter back in the day, coaches an awful lot of high-level MMA athletes in the UK. They're all on the big shows, never really questioned, and his level was always obviously above whatever his belt was anyway. Just got given his black belt the other day, and I was like, really? I thought I just assumed you was already one, and that's not. And again, that's of no disrespect to this guy. He was already obviously that, probably been that for a long time. But the journey he's been on for the last 7 years has been purely MMA, coaching MMA fighters. Building his gym and reputation on all of that side of stuff, and then must have one day kind of gone, actually, but I should probably just finish off the jiu-jitsu journey. And maybe he got back in the gi for a year just to finish things off, whatever he needed to do, for his coach to just acknowledge that. But it was purely just an acknowledgement, and I think that kind of ties into all the stripes and the gradings and things, and trying to explain like what I've been trying to, when people ask me, I think especially with social media nowadays and stuff, people are seeing their friends or people that train at different places get graded, or it appears different. Like, how come they've got 2 stripes and they've only been doing it 3 months or 6 months, and they've got this? How come they've already got the blue belt and I kind of haven't? And it's more at the beginning stage that I think that people don't understand it. I think after a while, maybe after blue and even beyond, you start to just settle into, it is what it is. If I get a stripe, I get a stripe. If I don't. I'm working on my own journey to get to where I want to get to. But I think over that first couple of years, since the stripe thing kind of came in, and this, that sort of first 2 years of someone's journey, I think that's where the confusion is for people. And it's, I find it hard to explain. I find it hard to explain to white belts when they're kind of saying, well, but I've been, training 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, but how come he got a stripe before me, or they didn't? Or it's such a difficult one, I find anyway, to explain. That's why I don't envy, you at that point. I think further down the line, it's a little bit easier. There's easier benchmarks at purple and brown to work towards. Early on, it's difficult.
I feel the opposite. I feel like it's easier at white belt, and I think because of the foundations program that I have,
Yeah.
So I'm looking for them to be able to hit certain targets, at least for the first 3 stripes, and then
Yeah.
then you get your 4th stripe based on like how much you've been on the mat and like
Right, okay.
like what you're doing first, and then that transition to blue, that can be either a really long road or a really kind of short road after that 4th stripe.
Right,
I mean, I was
okay.
at white belt for 4 years.
Yeah.
So I was at white belt, so I did 1 year of no gi, so I don't know
Yeah.
if you can count that at all, and then 3 years in the gi with Matt Parks, and yeah, it was 3 years of me being at white belt. And
I think I was similar, but that's again the same thing. First few years was all no gi. I wasn't really training jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu. I was training jiu-jitsu for MMA.
Yeah.
Training with high level MMA guys and just rolling, and I only really cared about my level against those guys on the mat on any given day, and they were my benchmarks as to how good I thought I was or wasn't getting. And then really, blue to purple, I think I was still within the where stripes weren't really being given out, so I wasn't worried about stripes. I think I only started getting stripes at sort of halfway through purple. Probably when I left Hong Kong. Actually, the gym I was training at didn't really do much in the way of stripes in Hong Kong, and then when I went to Australia, Ben Power obviously does stripes and has a very same SBG, so there's a structure to how he works it, and then the stripes started to go from there, and kind of the same at brown. So it's interesting. I've gone through phases of not getting stripes at all and it not being even part of it, to stripes being a thing, and like you say, it adds to the mindset, right? It's like, I've got 3, so when's my 4th? But getting 4, I never forget getting, was it my brown or blue? I can't remember. I had one of my coaches coaching in Hong Kong, and I think he gave me my 4th on, so I don't know, my 4th on my purple or 4th on my brown. And as he's giving it me, he said, look, I can give people 5, 6, 7 stripes. Just because this is your 4th, don't assume that your next belt is this. Sorry, that your next time you're given something, it's going to automatically be a belt. And I was like, what? But he said it whilst he was giving it me in front of everybody, quiet. It was kind of like, what do you mean? It's 4 stripes and then the next one's the belt, right? I've been doing this long enough to understand that. And it just threw me off. But again, it was just that lesson of, just don't assume.
Yeah.
Don't assume. If coaches are looking for different things, and if he goes, look, I want to acknowledge that you're still on the mat, I acknowledge you're still training hard, but you're not ready for that next belt.
Yeah.
You might get another stripe. So I was like, I thought you could only get 4. What's all that about? Which maybe you can't. Maybe I don't know whether he meant it or whether it was just this moment where I was like, fucking burst my bubble, why don't you? I was,
Could have just been saying that to also psych you out.
Exactly. I still don't know why he said it, and whether he meant it. I still don't know.
Because you got all 4 stripes on your brown, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I only got 2. When I got promoted to my brown belt, I got 10 months after I got my brown belt, I got 2 stripes.
Yeah.
I was like halfway there, and then sat at brown for the 2.5 years.
And well, like you say, it's such a bizarre. Yeah, it all depends on your coaches at the time, and then what happens, and then for you, so COVID hit not in the middle of a lot of it, but with Jon moving on, and you became the owner of this place, so no one was really handing stuff out to you, right?
Stripes and belts have always I've always had a big part of that since I was a blue belt, because Jon and I were both blue belts together.
Right.
And then he got his purple, then I got my purple, and then brown, and then he got his black belt, and I was just kind of like hanging out until I got my black belt too. So I always had a big part of making sure that I was keeping track of people and seeing where they were at. And Matt Parks and Jon would always ask me, hey, do you think this person's ready? Or sometimes the people would fly under the radar because they were so busy with curriculum and dealing with all the other students that sometimes they wouldn't be thinking about somebody, right? Or they would just, people get sometimes like overlooked. And I get it now. Like I get like having a room full of people.
You got 30, 40 people on the mat, and so if you don't have a structure, which a lot of jiu-jitsu coaches don't, it's like, oh shit, we should do a grading. And then I've had coaches where literally they've put on the group chat, put down your belt, how many stripes you've got, and how long you've been training.
Yep.
And the whole gym has put down a list, because the coach needs to be reminded of where everybody's at.
Yeah.
And if there's an element of time, first of all, in mind, hopefully it's not just, oh shit, that person's not had a stripe for a year, let's give them one. Yeah. You don't want it to be like that, but I've come across that so many times. Yeah. And you're like, the coach can't remember, can't remember who's who, but you've got a big gym of people coming at different times. It's like to remember who got what each time you do a grading, Yeah. So I've seen that loads.
Yeah. I'm pretty good about knowing where my students are, at least when it comes to time wise, and just because periodically I'll ask people, hey, how long have you been training? How long have you? Because I look for benchmarks more than I do time.
Yeah.
Jesse, we just promoted him to purple, and he was at blue belt for 4 years, which 1 year basically off because of COVID. But that's a long time to be at blue belt.
Yeah.
But his road is a little bit different than some of my other students, because he can't make it every day because he's got kids and he's got a business that he runs, and so I look at he's not a competitor. Is he doing what he should be doing? And half the road or half the battle with somebody like that is also skill and then character as well. Character is a big part of it, and people don't realize that. If I notice that somebody's being down on themselves, or they say something out of line or out of character on the mats, it's like, are you really being the best person you can on the mats? Is that really helping your jiu-jitsu right now? And I've gone both ways where I've given rank out, and then I'm like, well, maybe that person wasn't quite ready.
Well, look, it's, in any walk of life, it's easy to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And I think it depends whether it's a belt promotion or a stripe. It's easy to walk that back a little bit, because if it was a bit early, then you hold them off a little bit longer for what's next until you see what you need to see. It's not, hopefully it's never quite the end of the world, but mistakes happen. Jiu-Jitsu coaches, it's not easy to 100% get right all the time. But I think that's, you can say, going back to kind of my, not confusion with it, but where I find it sort of sometimes hard to explain, is all those little caveats, right? It can't just be about time, because yes, albeit, there's enough famous sayings about, just stay on the mat, just keep training, and 10 years later you could be a black belt. It's like this could that gets missed. If we purely make it about time, and people almost get these regimented time slots as to when they get a stripe or when they kind of get the next belt, they almost start chronologically working out, okay, well, if at this pace, really in 8 years I should be this. It's like, it doesn't necessarily work like that. And then obviously age comes into a factor. So you've got someone who starts jiu-jitsu at 40 years of age versus someone who starts at 20. You've got to factor in most likely more injuries, maybe not quite as fit. The body is different than a 20-year-old that jumps on the mat. Then you just have just pure genetics and history. Jiu-jitsu, the one thing I love about jiu-jitsu is the whole philosophy of the initially weak person being able to take down the stronger person. Maybe weak's not the right word, but you get so many killers on the mat that if you walked around the street you would just not think they could do what they can do, right? But it's that you're kind of trying to judge that, right? So that person that comes in the gym who's never been physical in his life, versus the person that comes in, and maybe especially in the US they've got the college wrestling background. These two people come in on day one having never done jiu-jitsu before. How do you kind of rank their progression? Because you've got the wrestler guy who could progress very quickly, very physical.
He knows how to move his body.
Yeah, and I didn't understand jiu-jitsu. I certainly didn't have a wrestling background, but when I started, I was still very physical. A lot of my success was attribute based, as my coach endlessly told me to stop using.
You're so strong.
Yeah, I still get it now. It's hilarious. I'm like, I still get even finally at black belt, I'll get white belts going, oh man, you're strong. Like, yeah, that's the reason I submitted you 8 times.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's just my strength. It's got nothing to do with the fact I've been doing this shit 15 years. But anyway, but I find that kind of thing. Like I love a good underdog. I always have. Like the underdog story. I'm a bit of a sucker for that, and that's why I'd probably struggle balancing out, because I look at someone who is on the mat who you just think, this kid probably, I wouldn't say this is an awful way to say it, but almost has no right doing the things he does to those kind of people, right? Yeah. If you just go pure physical sort of prowess, right? And yet they've learned the art, they've learned how to control that bigger, stronger, athletic person.
Yeah.
But then you've kind of got the flip side, the guy that is strong, powerful, uses it, has got a decent amount of skill and is kind of killing everybody, even people of higher levels. How do you manage that? Do you keep that person who's a white belt who's killing most of your blue belts, or do you kind of progress them a bit quicker early on and go, okay, put yourself in that level, but now you might be here longer?
Yeah.
Which was kind of a thing that I know happened with me around blue. I didn't progress quickly, but as far as white, I was white for quite a long time. But again, it was because I never put the gi on, and I was doing loads and loads of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But once I got to blue, I was held there for a while, because it's like, okay, now we're not going to entertain your attributes anymore. Like, we don't want to keep you at white, because we can see the level of people you're rolling and training with, and it semi doesn't look good. Because then it causes confusion, because you kind of got other people going, why is he only this? So I think it's, like I said, Mike was kind of making how do you as best as possible keep the confusion off the mat, because everybody is looking around. You forget, even as a coach, everyone's looking around at each other and trying to work out, well, how come he's got 4 straps? How come he's blue and I'm only white? How come he's purple but that blue belt's killing all those purple belts? There is that confusion there. But it's not talked about. People don't talk about it on the mat. They're not going to.
Yeah.
But they go home thinking it.
I say this before like every promotion, like not to compare yourself to other people, but I'm guilty of it too.
We all are.
Guilty
Absolutely.
of it too. Yeah. And
what I mean, what we say and what happens is two different things. And for me, I know what people are thinking to a certain degree. Not everybody. And again, I can only go off my own experience of what I thought. I mean, it took me a long time to let go of stressing about that. Traveling helped a bit, because I moved schools a bit, although I was very lucky to stay in a lot of SBGs, especially Australia, and then coming here was brilliant for me. It allowed me to keep that continuity from Manchester. But in between, there's been a few other places I've trained, whether it be Hong Kong, Singapore, and you are walking in and feeling like the new guy a little bit again, and being assessed, and are they going to bring me right back to kind of the start of my whatever belt I was at that time sort of journey, and make me work through a few more years, even though I've already been this for a few more years. But again, as a coach,
we'll let you wear the belt, but you're gonna stay there until I get to know you.
But also, I think as a coach, you've got a bit of a duty to do that. Don't just assume that the school you was at, was giving out belts at the same kind of level, because that is kind of a thing. And again, it's these things we don't talk about too much. It goes on. There's some schools that I feel that I've seen have progressed people faster than I think I would. But again, I'm not the one giving out stripes and belts, so it's always been my own opinion. Having rolled with a lot of the people, and I'm thinking, how come they've been progressed? And you watch the school grow and seem to grow quite quick, and it's like the conflict of I'm running a business versus, I think integrity always wins, regardless. But I do think people can get drawn in when money's on the line. People's attitudes to how they deliver the service can change a little bit. Yeah,
the way that I've sort of done over the years, like I said, it's not attribute based. Obviously, that does help when it comes to training. I mean, if you're super flexible, you're going to be awesome at playing certain cards. If you're really fast or really strong, it's going to help you no matter what. I was listening to a podcast recently with Matt Thornton, Travis, and John Frankel.
Yeah.
And they said the 2 biggest lies in jiu-jitsu is that strength and flexibility doesn't matter. Strength and size doesn't matter in jiu-jitsu. Because I know that shit's not true.
It does, yeah,
and
absolutely.
you were saying that a lot of people have this misconception of the small guy on the mats, and they're scared of the big guy on the mats. And I feel like people feel that way with me sometimes, because I'm not a big guy. I'm 165 and 5'11", and barely any muscle on me. But I can hold my own with guys your size or guys that are twice my size. And it gives me all hell, and people tell me like, oh, you make it look so easy, or you're so strong, but it's like I'm hitting angles and I'm using my technique, and I'm using all 165 pounds of me on one small part of your body. And I think that the students figure that out fast here. And you were saying like, how do we rank people when they come in from other gyms? Like sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow. I have people that come in and they're used to such a specific style of jiu-jitsu, because that's the way that their teachers taught, and that's the way that we're all taught. And so like we had a student that came in and he's really used to like spider guard and delihiva and barambolos, and I mean I'm guilty of that because that's the way that I was first taught jiu-jitsu. White and blue belt were all De La Riva and Berimbolo, and I got good at it. But that only lasts you so long. So then they come here, and I know that stuff. But what I'm showing them is the foundations. Be heavy in side control. Be heavy in mount. Stay connected. If you're on bottom, still keep connection, contour, and pressure. And learn all these things. And then their mind is blown. I'm like, you were never shown these things. Or they were shown these things, but it was never explained in a way that would help their guard or help the style that they have. And people ask me, like, how do you know what style you want to play? And first of all, if you're a white belt, you don't have a style.
Absolutely.
You don't have a style. Like, listen to your coach. Do the moves that you're good at and keep practicing those, but really focus on the moves that you are not good at. And that's the progression that you see at white belt, right? And that's why our foundations class is so perfect for that. So I don't want to say perfect because nothing's perfect, but it's really good at pushing people to that next step. And people will come in. We get a new student. Their first week, their mind is blown, and they feel like they know nothing, and they feel like you feel kind of stupid doing some of the stuff, right? Because you have no idea what's going on, especially if you're not athletic. And then 2 months in, a new person will join the gym, and I'm like, hey, you that joined 2 months ago, work out with this person. And then suddenly they realize that they understand a little bit more. And that they can actually help in a way, right?
You can start to articulate a little bit of what they're doing and feel useful all of a sudden. It's like, I know this. I know where this grip should be, or all these little things.
There's a big difference between a 2-stripe white belt and a no-stripe white belt. A huge difference. And I think once you get to like purple, like the stripes really don't matter, because you can have a purple belt that's been a purple belt for a year and has 4 stripes on their belt, and then you can have a purple belt that's been there for 4 years, should have been a brown belt a long time ago. And it's like the stripes don't really matter at that level, because purple belt's purple belt. He's like smack dab in the middle. Matt Parks, my teacher, he talks about how like purple belt's the first advanced belt that you get. Like, it's not intermediate. Blue belt's intermediate. Like, purple belt is the first advanced belt that you can get, because you can basically run a class on your own and be okay doing it, at least a kid's class or a foundations class, and you should know that class inside and out. So I think getting to purple belt is the hardest battle. And like, I've heard people say this before, like, if you're going to quit at any belt, quit at purple. Because at least then you can fight and you can handle your own in a fight.
You've learned enough jiu-jitsu to actually use it in a real life situation if need be by that point.
And then the blue belt, like, people get to blue belt and people quit at blue belt because they realize that nothing's changed. And it's the same damn battle at blue belt that it was at white belt. And I think at blue belt, I think it was Henzo or somebody that had said that for every 30 people that walk in the gym, he'll get 1 blue belt out of it. And I see the same experience. Like, it's jiu-jitsu's, if you have a big ego, and you'll notice this at the gym, anybody who has an ego doesn't stay. So getting to blue belt, it is very much skill, but it is very much, can you stick with the sport? Your ego can't play a part in it, and it's very personal at that level at blue belt, because it's very frustrating. There's so many plateaus, and then you learn so many new techniques, and then plateau out because you are kind of creating, or you're gaining habits. I don't want to say game just yet, because I don't believe anybody gains a game or plays a game until they're at purple.
I would agree with that. I think and I think a lot of it, like you said, it's kind of when people are at different levels at different times, so the plateaus come just when you kind of least expect it. Everyone's assessing each other's game, so you're getting things on somebody and you're having a good time with it, but you forget that they're going home going, how do I stop him doing that? And they're coming in to try and stop you next week, and maybe they don't, and then finally they start stopping it, and you're like, you've been going home having a good time, going, I'm all right, no one's stopping me do this move, so I'm just going to keep doing it, but not really thinking about evolving into anything else. So all of a sudden, people start catching you up a bit and catching you with things, and you're all of a sudden like, shit. That's when I always used to go home more and analyze, okay, what do I need to do now? Everyone's motivation, I guess, to grow is different. My motivation to grow, if I'm perfectly honest, is always, look, once I started to get purple to and brown, I was kind of, look, I want to be a black belt one day. I've been doing this too long not to be.
Yeah.
But my purpose to study is always against opponents. And when I say opponents, I mean training partners. And even in competition, but my training partners are always my benchmark for me. When I go into a role with someone, and again, this is always ego, but someone a slightly lower belt or whatever, and I end up in some sort of battle because I didn't expect it, and I'm like, fucking hell, that guy was good. I wouldn't, what happened there? Yeah. I'm always like, okay, shit, right, I need to go away and have a bit of a think. Okay, what am I going to do differently next time I start rolling with that person? Because my thing over the last few years has been to kind of be very lazy with the way I start roles, depending on most people. I'll just lie back, sit on my back, let them start to kind of pass. I don't do that with you because you're good on top. So, and I don't like being on my back again. So again, I pick and choose. Obviously, as the level goes up, I try not to start in a bad position. Yeah. Although starting in a bad position is a good thing, it helps. But because especially if I do that and then I end up stuck there for the whole round, and I'm like, that was kind of my own fault, really. Yeah. And then I didn't have an answer to get out all of a sudden, or whatever. And then I'll go in next time. But again, even that learning process doesn't help, because if I kind of go in next time and go, right, okay, I'm not starting there, I know I'm good on top. So if I jump on top of that person, I'm going to stay there for the round. So have I learned anything?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to our progression, I find myself letting purple and blue belts like settle a new position, so that way I can work out of the position. And I do this because I'm either working on something or have my own projects when it comes to my own game, right, or my own like my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I don't have all the time in the world to be drilling the things that I should be, because I'm teaching all the damn time. Yeah. And I find myself doing this with blue and purple belts because they're a good test. They're good. Yeah. Like I think at white belt, you need somebody who's totally compliant in letting you drill something. Yeah. At blue belt, you need somebody who's totally compliant at letting you drill something, so you get that muscle memory. Then towards the end of blue belt, going into purple belt, you need that resistance back, right? Or as Matt Thornton coined, aliveness. So we start adding that back pressure, and we add certain percentages to it. And we do some foundations classes. We do this in our core classes. And then at brown and black belt, you need somebody who's totally unwilling to let you do something, and actively fighting you, and actively like just stopping every grip and trying to get past and blocking every choke or every arm bar. And at that level, you should be able to use your body weight and the connection that you need, and be able to still make things work even while making mistakes. And I always say that the two best, there's two best teachers in the world, and it's failure and it's pain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Failure and pain. And I'm at that point where like my failure rolling with you and the other brown belts right now here is exponentially high, because I'm finding a lot of joy in failing right now, because then I go back to the drawing board and saying, okay, what was going wrong? What was going wrong there? And then because I'm having this love-hate relationship with failure, I'm putting my students through that as well. Yeah. And it's okay to fail. And a lot of people, like, they get so caught up in the stripes, and they get so caught up in the rank, and they get so caught up in that, and then they get frustrated when they fail. But they don't realize all the lessons that they're learning through failure, because then they have this drive to not fail the next time. And I push my students in that direction. And because with Matt Parks, my road was long and hard, and he barely gave me any advice on what I should be doing. And he would say like, hey, play top more. Or it got to the point where I was doing a lot of triangles and I was doing a lot of chokes, and he was like, next month I don't want to see any of that. Yeah. He's like, work on something else. Yeah. What do you mean?
No, my biggest progressions were always actually, like you just said, taking things out. Yeah. Because I've told you this before, I'm still bad at it, but I was terrible at playing off my back. I don't like being there. I hate it. It's definitely not my best position. But some of my biggest growths were when coaches have gone, this month I only want to see you start from your back. Yeah. And work from there and try and stop people passing and it took me that experience, and then like a month of just continually doing it, I started noticing I was getting better. And it's so fucking obvious Like, I've been a coach my whole life. I know how this stuff works. I know how to improve an athlete, right? But when it's yourself, and especially when it's something physical like jiu-jitsu, boxing's been the same. You know, we do rounds where, you know, you're just using your jab, you know, or you're just, you know, working a certain style or a certain way in order to improve. You know, my initial coach, Carl Tanzel, was a genius at that sort of stuff. I'd watch him, you know, make the guys spar in certain ways where they were getting beat up because they were only working one thing that they were going to put back into the game come fight night. But the way that worked when they put the whole game back in, was just, you see this progression of, you've got to be willing to get frustrated. You've got to be willing to go, you know what, regardless of what everyone else thinks they're doing on the mat, I'm doing this. And then you've also got to somehow, even more so I think in jiu-jitsu, have that humbleness to not tell your training partner what you were doing. There's such a, when you've been beaten up for a round, but you've gone to yourself, I'm only working this, and I'm not very good at this, so there's every chance you're going to smash me this round. And maybe for the next month because I'm working this. And there's that ego part of you wants to say, oh, that was good, I'm only working this at the moment, but that was, and I have to hold myself back from, you know, either making an excuse or explaining what I'm doing. It doesn't matter what they're thinking. If they're thinking they're beating me for a month because I'm taking things out of my game, that's fine. Because I'll put them back in a month's time and go back to where things were with added skills, hopefully. And trying to get people to kind of understand that part of the journey. And like you just said, I think for you, the transition now of going from student to, and it's a big leap, you've not just gone from like student to kind of assistant coach helping out and still being part of a comp team and all these things, right? You've gone from student to gym owner. And teaching nearly all the classes. So like you said, I remember, I think it might have been John Franco was saying some of this, and it's, you know, I remember the Gracies obviously talking about it a lot when they first came to the States, and obviously they come at a high level, but their students, it's a new gym, all their students are white belts. How did they continue to get better?
Handicap.
Exactly, and what you was exactly just saying is like, you know, I'm going to let, I think John Franco said it a lot, you know, he let people in, and then his job was to kind of try and get out, depending on what the position was, what it was he was working. And I think that's just a huge part of your evolution, no matter what. And I think that's, you know, in fight sports in general, I think that's a big part of improving something, because by nature, no one likes getting hurt. No one likes getting beat. And if you add this to MMA and boxing where the strikes involved, it's like you're going to very quickly resort to what you're good at when you're being hit, because no one wants to be hit. So you really do need coaches to make you sit back and go, we are working this, or this is the combination we're going to be trying to work on this future opponent. I only want to see you trying to set this up for the next however long. And that can be a horrible journey, because your sparring partners going all out, they're doing their own thing, and they've also, especially when you elevate this to either competition team or like say professional fighters, they're in there with their own agenda as well. So maybe they haven't got a fight coming up, and yes, they're going to be good sparring partners, don't get me wrong, but they're also using their full arsenal because they want to improve. You know, you've got the guy that you know is normally better, but they're working on that one thing, and that frustration to actually stick to the game plan while you're in a training camp and work what your coach wants you to work, even though you know it's not a strength, in order to get better, is where you see probably most athletes, regardless of sport, you know, improve the most over just, you know, you should always, you know, again, there's two schools to go. You get so good at something that you know what's coming, it's your job to stop it. But that can only go so far. There's only a few, I guess, especially in combat sports, there's only ever been a few people that I would put at that list where you go, okay, no matter what, they never really changed their style. I think it was always someone else's job to beat it. You know, Floyd Mayweather would be
Mike
kind of
Tyson.
an example. You know, they're not going to change their style against their opponent, and the game plan adjusts while they're in. You know, most of the best have to, you know, do still have to work and do still have to take things out of the game, still have to practice on becoming better. And MMA is the huge evolution in that, because the sport continues to evolve. Even just the last couple of years with all these low calf kicks, it's changed so many people's game all of a sudden. And you're watching it and thinking, okay, this almost didn't exist 2 years ago, 3 years ago. No one was getting kicked there. How did all of a sudden this become a thing? And now look at the amount of fights. In some ways it's kind of, I don't want to say ruining, but sometimes you're watching a really good fight, but you're watching this guy not check a leg kick. You're like, this fight's going to be over in the next round, and it's not going to be over because the guy got, caught with an amazing, flurry combination with the hands. That's going to stop them, but they're going to stop them because they stop moving the leg.
Yeah.
And as a fight fan who wants to enjoy watching fights, I almost get frustrated when it starts to happen. So it's like, this fight's going to be over, but not in the way I almost want it to be over.
Yeah.
Because although those leg kicks are devastating, it's not exciting.
Have you ever eaten a leg kick?
Absolutely.
Dude, they suck.
I'm not good at it. There's one thing, when I first started getting into Muay Thai from boxing, I just can't stand leg kicks. Mattyman, I used to train with loads. He's got like steel bones for legs.
Yeah.
And he just, even with shin pads on, he'd catch me on the leg. I've got the tightest IT bands in the world, and that pain I have never ever enjoyed. Like
the whole leg goes dead.
You kick me once, and all of a sudden I'm like fucking NCAA wrestler, because I just want to go on the ground. I'm like, I don't want, and I'm not. I mean, my takedowns are not great; they're okay, but again, I'm like, you kick me once, and I'm game over. I don't want to be kicked. Yeah. I'm like, I don't mind throwing a few leg kicks, nothing above hip height. But yeah, they are the most painful thing. People do not understand how painful leg kicks can be.
Yeah.
And especially, I come from a boxing background, so you get a lot of boxers that don't understand it until they see it. And I've seen fights, old fights, where boxers, one or two kicks, and they're like, oh shit,
they're done.
Understand that level of pain.
The low calf kick, especially, I think it's terrible.
No, and that is beyond my time of sparring. Like, we weren't taking those back when I was sparring MMA and training for MMA and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So even that level of pain of those, I know what it's like to have a dead leg. And I have hit here, so I know when this is gone, it's gone. There's no control of the foot. The pain's kind of, like I say, I know what it's like on the thigh. This calf thing's, it's again, at the moment, it's the in thing. It's changing the game. It's going to be very interesting to see how it evolves, and people kind of start to stop that happening so much, and fighters go, okay, maybe that's not the thing anymore. We need to move to something else. I don't know, but that's why we love this sport, right? The evolution of it's so interesting to be a part of.
And I think people are realizing too that, like, when you actually hit the leg or you kick the leg and it gets checked, it's doing just as much damage to you as it's doing to them.
Absolutely. Well, hence the broken legs.
All the fractures
it's
and broken
not
legs.
Loads, 3 or 4 recently, but it's enough to start to go, hang on, this didn't used to happen. People didn't used to break their legs.
Yeah.
Not like they're starting to now.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, that's a whole of the evolution of the sport that people are going to have to kind of get their heads around a little bit. But yeah, so interesting. Let me switch gears a minute. There was something I wanted to ask you about, and again, it is your gym, something I've been massively inspired by since training here, and especially since you kind of taken over, because you took over right when everything shut down. Yeah. What's the experience of trying to keep the school running? Like, community to me is everything when it comes to gyms. Gyms are for me, like, I've had it. People say it to me a lot, because the gyms I built are kind of high end, very nice, very plush. But I say it immediately, like that means nothing really. It's an entry point to people that walk in and go, oh wow. But that wow factor goes very quickly. It's gyms, some of the best gyms in the world that I love. They're not high end looking gyms. They're places that people come to because they love the coaches, they love the environment, they love the people that train there, whether it's a weights gym or a fight based gym. It's the community that gets created. The gym's just 4 walls, a bunch of mats, some equipment, whatever, and you do want to make it inviting and a nice environment for people to be in, don't get me wrong, but it's not the main reason. If I look at some of all the gyms I've trained in, it's never been the reason I've stuck to a gym. I've gone to different countries where I've moved to Hong Kong or Singapore or whatever, and I've tried some of the nicest gyms in the world, and it's just not felt. Even during lockdown, I had to train a bit at Equinox when I moved downtown, and no offense to Equinox, they're a great company for what they do, but I just didn't like training in there. Not my thing. So how have you found, the experience of kind of losing, first of all, your day-to-day, having, students disappear for a while? I mean, I see them come back now, and it's amazing. I love it. The mats have just got busier and busier. And all these people that you may have at one point thought, I've lost everyone, are all back. They're all training. How has that experience been for you?
So for those that don't know my background, I've been with the gym since 2008, training with Jon Bond and Matt Parks and a couple other teachers that have come and gone. And I went through, became John's apprentice, and then took over the kids classes. Eventually, years later, became co-owner, and then eventually full owner. And that full ownership of the gym came with COVID. And we kind of hit this point where March 2020, we had just done one huge belt promotion for one of our students who got his blue belt, and we had a bunch of people in the gym. We were like, the gym is rocking. Like, there's so many people on the mats, and I remember having this discussion with Jon Bond, who's my business partner and coach, and I remember having this discussion with him where we were like, we're gonna be fucking rocking in 2 years. And like, this is finally gonna make us some money. We're gonna be good. And then March 14th, I believe it was, there's a Speakeasy Jiu-Jitsu video on this. The day we closed our doors, it was a Saturday. It was rainy. I remember it was raining, and
you remember everyone thinking it was just going to be 3 weeks?
Yeah,
we've discussed that so many times. We can last. We can do that. We were thinking 3 weeks was like a lifetime.
Yeah,
I was like I can do 3 weeks without the gym. It's cool. Train outside. I'll go running. Be all good. 3 weeks and we'll be back to normal. Fuck. That couldn't have been more wrong if it tried.
So John and I were here. We printed out a sign, said that we're going to be closed for 2 weeks, and that we hoped everybody stayed safe. And I remember, I had invested in a bunch of equipment for Speakeasy just before that. So I had the cameras, I had the new computer, the editing software. So within a week, I had an online class. So John and I were in here. We weren't in here at the same time because COVID, we weren't allowed to be. We were in here opposite of each other, making these videos and then uploading them to our Google Classroom. So then we had like a fully fledged program a week after we closed. So that second week, we were good to go.
Yeah.
And then we got the news like, we're gonna have to be closed a little bit longer, maybe another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're like, fuck. Okay, we'll keep going. And so I was working like 12-hour days, because I would come in, film for 4 or 5 hours, go home, and I was figuring out, because I wasn't the best editor in the world, but I wanted our stuff to look good because we had people who were still paying for our program.
Yeah.
So I wanted it to be like...
Yeah, because initially gyms closed down, and the first thought and goal is, okay, how can we continue to charge and add value? And it sounds kind of awful, but you're like, look, but right now we've still got the bills to pay. At the time, that first couple of months, there was definitely like, you know, people were trying to push for rent abatement and things, but no one knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So people,
rent was still due, paychecks were still due.
Everyone was thinking it wasn't going to last long, so we all want our money, right? Everyone wanted their money, so we're kind of like, okay. You know, and I know we found that hard a little bit in Hong Kong. It's like, okay, what can we do? How can we make sure that people are getting value and are willing to continue to pay? Yeah,
and it's not only because it's your livelihood, but it's also because this is what I've dedicated my life to doing. So I felt a responsibility to my students to continue to do whatever it was I could to continue this in whatever capacity it was.
Yeah.
And so it got to the point where month 2, like people were just putting their accounts on hold, and they were just dropping like flies. And by the end of month 2, so March, April, May, it got like pretty bad. And I remember having this discussion with Coach Jon, where he was focusing on his house and his family and doing everything that he could. We couldn't pay Linda anymore. We couldn't pay Dakota, and it was starting to get to the point where I was gonna stop getting paid. And you know, I remember talking to him and being like, "It's cool. I'm gonna keep pressing." He was like, "You know, it's not worth it anymore. We'll just keep recycling what we already have in the Google Classroom." And I was like, "No, we got to keep going." I said, "Don't worry about it. I got it. Let me handle the videos. I'll keep filming and I'll keep doing that." And then I remember telling him, "Let's do a live Zoom class." And he goes, "Oh, there's not really much interest." And then July came around. We can open back up. We can open back up.
Yeah.
And so we were like, awesome, let's do this. We set up some kids classes, half-an-hour classes. We put tape on the mats, spaced everybody out, had them in their own boxes, and we had like 5 kids show up. Because some a lot of people were still kind of paying, and we're still making okay money, not enough to cover really pretty much anything, but enough to buy food, and it started to like get a little bit bigger, and I think we were open for like 2.5 weeks or something like that, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then they're like, nope, numbers are going back up, we're closed.
Closed again. Yeah, it was literally 3 or 4 weeks. I remember it because I was in Hong Kong, and everything was back open in Hong Kong. I was there for 2 weeks. And then I heard everything had opened here, and I'm like, you're joking. Like, I fly all the way around the world, and now the gyms are back opening back in LA. So I missed the first 2 weeks of them being open. I got back, and I think there was 2 more weeks of everything being open, and then it shut down again.
So it was about a month then. And then I remember we closed again. And I had this meeting with, John texted me one day or called me. He was like, hey man, we had been doing coaches meetings, and we did Friday night Zoom classes, and we were doing like live like chats with our students. So we're keeping the community alive, right? So the community was actually, I felt like it was stronger through the closure than it was previously. Like people, I think, realized like this was our social circle, right? These are the people, our students and our coaches, and everybody just like came together, and we just spent. Everybody told me we look forward to that Friday night. Like we called it a happy hour because we put on fights, or we would talk about different fighters, and it was a lot of fun. It was also a lot of work. But John called me and was like, "Hey man, can we have a meeting at the end of this week?" It was at the end of July. Yeah, sure, cool. And I had been pushing, editing, still releasing stuff, and John was like. We met, and I remember the look on his face. I knew something was wrong. Like I just knew automatically something was wrong, because I've known John for 12 years, my best friend. And he's like, he told me just like this, things are getting pretty bad. He's like, I'm selling my house, and I'm moving to Montana. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
right, okay.
What are you talking about? I knew we had some contingency plans. I thought maybe we were gonna have to close the gym, and maybe like if things got really bad, we'd do private lessons, or something else would happen. I had all these other plans because you know me. I'm the type of person. You said you wanted to start a podcast.
It was started before I'd even come up with
we bought the name, the website, we got the Instagram, the Facebook, like we did it. I did it because you said you wanted to do it. I planned for these things. If there's like a seminar, or I feel like issues are coming up with the business, I plan for it. I like to know the ins and outs of it. And John kind of hit me with this thing where I was like, what do I do? And so within 24 hours, like I remember, so I had this discussion with him. It was heartbreaking. It was devastating. It was everything that you could be, like you could think, I could feel, I felt. And I tried convincing him to stay, and I knew at that point, like, he had made the decision. And
I think once someone's like the whole circumstance of everything, when someone's made that big a decision, it's kind of already done. And like you say, everyone's got there was that period, and there still is, it's still going on, where I think people are, there's a lot of judgment gone on through the whole of this COVID stuff that I hate, and I think everyone forgets that, everyone's out there having to try and do the best they can. I remember when our gym shut down, there was initial like trying to really push for people to keep paying. I'm like, but people are losing their jobs now. So we have to be, yes, we're worried about us and we're worried about our gym, but the bottom line is our clients are now, some of them are not working. If they say they can't afford to pay, they can't afford to pay. Like we're not open. We're not, having a physical presence makes things really hard. There's only so much Zoom and things you can do to keep people going. But
I considered the Zoom, I considered all the classes, because then we started doing, so the transfer of the gym happened. I ended up looking at a bunch of different, like within that week, I looked at a bunch of different spaces, and everything was the same amount of rent for this space, but like half the size, and I was surprised because there's all these fucking closed businesses, and they wanted premium. They wanted premium rent for like a dying economy, and I was like, what can we do? So I went to my wife. So she goes, well, let's look at what you guys are currently making. She looks at it. She looks at what the rent is. She looks at overhead, and she goes, we're a little bit under, but we can do it. And I had a savings and that I had been saving because I was starting Speakeasy, and I wanted to do something with that project, and all of my money ended up going back into this gym. And so after she said, we can do it, it's going to be hard, but we can do it, she was the one who really pushed me to keep this space. So I went back to Jon and told him, because he had told me, you can have all the equipment and you can store it, and when you feel, whenever next year, whenever you feel you're ready to open up a gym again, you can open up a gym. He's like, do you want that? And I was like, yeah. I'm gonna keep all. I've dedicated 12 years of my life to running this place with you, and previously before this, I've built 3 gyms with him. So it was Kempo Fit 2.0, then we built Jitsu Fit together, and then we did Jitsu Fit 2.0, and then we did SBG. And it was like, I've been running this place for a really long time. I am a head instructor. I do every single sign up here. Like, I know the business. I felt completely confident in being able to do it. And then, so there were things previously that Jon and I had talked about. I was like, we should do live Zoom classes. He was like, no. And I understand why he didn't want me to, because I was already working so much, and he felt like he couldn't pay me, and I wasn't expecting him to pay me. I just wanted to save this place. And there were things that he was telling me no to that finally, because I owned the business, you could just go out and do
it.
Could.
And
so I did Zoom classes. I finally started the live scheduled Zoom classes through the week. Then that evolved into, maybe we should do outdoor classes. And in California summer heat, we were out in the parking lot, 90-degree weather, doing outdoor classes with the kids in masks, full PPE. I had this terrible tan line, getting new signups again. I was doing this COVID-free 133 deal. For people for 3 months. That was the agreement. 3 months. And because we didn't know if we were going to have to close again, but I could lock them in for 3 months. And they could do any makeups they wanted. And then I also, in that time, got the Pasadena PD contract. And that's what inevitably ended up saving the gym, because when I took over from Jon, we just found out that we had gotten the police contract. And so I was able to have essential workers in here because I was training the recruits, and then I was training the full department. And so, man, I was in here in the mornings recording pre-recorded classes. I was doing Zoom live classes. I was doing the police program. I was the only coach alongside Dakota, who was helping me with the online the Zoom classes, and then Coach Linda would be in here when things kind of opened up again and we started to do the outdoor classes. She helped me out with that, and then she would come in to help me out with the Zoom classes. So thank God I had them too, but it was like everything, suddenly I went from doing my job and then doing my job and Jon's job. And then I was down a head instructor, which is a big thing. And so a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of planning, because I like to plan, and I like to be ahead of the game, and then a lot of tears and a lot of pain and a lot of like, am I going to be able to do this without my best friend and my mentor that I've had for 12 years? Am I going to be able to fill his shoes? Am I going to be able to teach as well as him? Am I going to be able to do all of this person that I've looked up to for so long? And damn it, I did it.
I'm sure there's an element that, like, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Gyms and businesses are not out of the woods yet, right? There's a lot of stuff that we owed during all that time that you still owe. You still have to kind of pay off. You still have to rebuild. But I've been through this. I won't say with you, because you're doing it, but I've been in the gym nearly every week at some point. Seeing it from the car park stuff to being closed to the police starting and it just being a handful, and then creating the police class where you went, okay, I can create this police class so you guys can come and be bodies in the police class, because that'll allow you guys to roll a little bit as well. Just seeing the amount of police that are now here, which is amazing. And those guys are, look, everyone is super valuable to any business, but the way that police program has kind of grown and the support I've seen those giving you, and the way Alex has kind of supported bringing it all in, I think it's a testament to you, right? Because like you said, it's always that interesting point of what are people buying into, what are people coming for, because that transition started with Jon. Those guys were just starting, because I remember coming and rolling, and there was literally just Alex, I think.
Yeah.
And maybe one other from the police, and he wasn't here long before Jon left. So if sometimes people are beholden to certain people, it could have quite easily gone the other way and gone, well, we were here for Jon, and that's what I was, you as well, right?
That's what I was worried about.
And luckily that didn't happen. You look at how it's grown and how people have supported you. I mean, like I said, this inspires me most likely a lot more than and I ever say. I don't say too much, but well, when I do, it's not of anything of any relevance generally.
I know what you're talking about.
It's usually just banter on the gym on the gym floor and winding Woozy up. It's my constant joy when it comes to training. But because I think a lot of people misunderstand all of this from other people's points of view, and I've had these conversations, and I think gym owners and people that have tried to keep their gyms running and the things they've had to do and some of the decisions they had to make, it's very misunderstood, and we all only look at it from our own perspective. Clients, members look at it from their perspective, and like, why are they doing this? How come they're not doing that? And staff, I feel terrible. I've already, I've got five members of staff, 4. I've got whatever I've got hired right now, and I'm already, that weight of burden of like, I have to get these guys busy, got to get these guys some work. People think that business owners are only really asked about making some money, and it's like, well, no, I'm asked about making some money so we can pay the bills, so we can keep this place open, so I can keep paying you, so we can keep our members and our people happy, especially I think in the gym world. I don't know, I've only ever worked in gyms pretty much. I had a couple of jobs when I left school that were not gym based, but that's being as old as I am, I can't really remember much about it. So for me, gyms have been my whole life, and Christ, if I did not get into this industry to be, a multimillionaire. I still run around to a certain degree. I do a lot better financially than I used to, but at the end of the day, the gym is still my home. Like, the thing that I've missed over the last year or so is just having that place to go into. Coming here was my release, and not just because of the jiu-jitsu. Yes, obviously jiu-jitsu, and SBG's been a big part of my life, but the banter, the people, the rolling. Same reason I go to Churchill and train and do my boxing. I don't have to drive all the way over here and all the way over there, both ends of the day, just to train, but I need what gym communities give me. And I gravitate towards certain people in certain places, and obviously with my own gyms, I'm more than aware of the responsibility that comes with that as an owner and people that run gyms. And I think trying to, get that side across, there's been enough, everyone knows businesses are suffering, but there's been an awful lot of information that's been out there purely about individuals. And why we have to, when it comes to the business side of things, it's like the decisions that people are making are awful, and I think even more so in the gym world, because yes, we need to make money, but the gym's not just about making money to me. Having my own gym closed for so long is painful, because I'm missing my life, I'm missing my day. I have to then run around and try and find it elsewhere. Even just being open this week has been a bit of a very short-lived relief, because now I've got to start making some money and start making it all back, and you're like the euphoria of like, yes, finally we're fucking open after all. And especially because I'm just sick of people asking me when we're open. If nothing else, people have been asking me when we're open for the last 12 months.
There'll be a big fat sign.
And I keep having to come up with excuses. I'm like, and I'm like boring people to shit with talking about, I never thought I'd spend my life talking about fire inspections, business inspections. And I can see people glaze over. They're like, is your gym open? I'm like, no. And I start to try and explain, and they're like, I'm just asking if your gym's open. I'm not bothered why. And I'm like, I start blurting out everything that's going on.
You're talking about me.
Probably. I'm just like, why am I explaining in depth? Just tell them it's not fucking open yet, because it's not, right? And it will be when it is. But you're
so frustrated. I get that.
Yeah,
I get that. You want to tell people like why the gym.
I just
isn't
want to be able to say yes,
it.
right? I want people to go, right, your gym's open, great, off you go, because then we can just stop talking about the reasons why it isn't, right? Yeah. So that's kind of over. Like I said, everyone sources inspiration from different places, and watching the way you've continued to keep this going in a really fucking difficult, time frame over the last 18 months is inspiring. And I think, I think it probably inspires a lot of people that are on the mats as well. They might not say it, but it's You know, I've seen a lot of and I've seen a lot of places go under over the last year or so. So
a lot of my friends have closed gyms.
You know, and it's heartbreaking. You know, I am not. I've been in the gym game a long time, and you know, in my world, especially the personal training world and the gym world can be a little bit more, I think, competitive as far as, you know. There's a lot of backstabbing goes on. There's a lot of people that kind of almost want other gyms to fail and struggle.
Yeah.
I've never been one of those. You know, you could open a gym next door to mine, and you know, as long as you're not there to try and poach my business, I'll run side by side with you. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, just don't be an arsehole. Yeah. And we'll survive quite comfortably, right?
Your gym will be way nicer, though. I'm just gonna say. That's part of why.
But you never know, right? You say that, and it's interesting because I said this in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's got this thing of like, there's a lot of high-end gyms. There's a lot of people with money, and they create these spaces that are just fucking super nice. Like you walk in them, and you're like, wow, what did this cost? And everyone's trying to one up each other. And when we opened our gym, you know, at the initial staff we hired, and even, you know, my business partners and that, we were very much like, you know, this is the highest end looking gym in Hong Kong. And I said, give it a year.
Yeah.
Like there's always someone going to come along and one up you. You know, we've just tried to one up everybody else, and I think we've succeeded. And sure enough, within a year, and this gym opened, that gym opened, and you're looking at the pictures and they're saying like, fucking hell, that's nice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've said that since day one, and that's why I'm big on look. And the environment and the look and this view, depending on what kind of clientele you're looking to bring in, as when people walk in the door, is massively important, but it's very short-lived. It lasts about as long as you can keep the customer service up. Customer service for me is number one, and environment and the community that you build. I don't give a fuck how much your gym costs and how nice it is. Because again, going back to the Equinox kind of scenario, they're beautiful gyms.
Yeah.
Very expensive. I just can't get on with the vibe of that type of gym over, you know, I go to Gold's on Venice Beach, you know, and it's fucking, it's just got that, you can't, the problem with the modern gym is creating history. For me, gyms that have history, you know, and it's the type of people that train there, the type of coaches, you know, there's different reasons why you're like, right, that's the place to go and train, regardless of whether it's clean or whether it's got the latest equipment in it or any of that stuff. And my battle is being able to, you can't cheat time, but build something that has a bit of both. About our business model is to attract sort of higher end people from a financial point of view.
Yeah.
But I want to service everyone. That's why we have all the boxing and stuff. So I have levels. You don't have to have an awful lot of money just to train in my gym. But I also wanted to make sure that the gym has a feel where you walk in and you go, I want to train here. Because if you don't walk into a gym wanting to train,
you're not going to go.
There's a problem, right?
Yeah, it's not going
to work. So, but no, I think, you know, your story. That's why I wanted to ask. It's been very interesting. One last thing before we wrap up, I guess. At what point did the SBG connection come in for you guys? Because that's been something that's happened a lot over the last few years with different people that have got very, very different backgrounds, but have chose to go SBG.
Yeah. So it's funny because the police program happened because 8 to 6 years ago, I really wanted to start training police. And so I've been working with police officers one-on-one or here and there for the past 8 years. And so I started changing my curriculum. John put me in charge of the foundations class. I was like, cool. I'm not going to teach Del Hiva. I'm not going to teach Barambolo. I'm not going to teach any of this complicated stuff. I'm going to teach this really awesome instructional that I found by Hicks and Gracie.
Right.
So I had newfound glory for Hicks and Gracie, and it changed my game right at the beginning of my brown belt. And I remember telling John, like, hey, we should look into this stuff. Like, I really like the curriculum. And John kind of came to the same sort of crossroads that I did at the same time, without even really talking to each other about it at first. And he's like, you know what? I've been thinking about this too. And I told him, I'm looking into Dave Kama here in Irvine or Anaheim, wherever he's at. I was like, he's one of Hickson's black belts, and he teaches all foundations. He's exactly what I'm looking for. There's this guy, Ryan Young, who has a YouTube channel. You guys should totally look up. It's a Kama, K-A-M-A, Jiu-Jitsu. Plug. I don't know them, but I really like their videos. And I was like, I want to go train with Dave Kama. And then he goes, I found or one of our students, one of our blue belts, actually moved up to Portland and started working at headquarters with Matt Thornton. And John's like, he's working with Matt Thornton, says he really likes it. We should check it out. So we started looking at his videos. And Matt Thornton just kind of made sense for where we were. I used to compete. I don't like competing. It's not my forte. I like self-defense. I like fighting. I like MMA. And so my ideology and the way that I thought about jiu-jitsu and what it should be was in line with what Thornton was saying. And so Jon was like, hey, I'm going to go up to Portland and see if, what Matt thinks about us and what if we could be part of the team. I'm just going to go up and talk to him.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. So I took care of the gym for that week or whatever it was, 4 days, 5 days. And then I was video chatting with Jon. The second day he was there, the third day, and he was like, man, the roles here are awesome. He's like, Matt Thornton's super friendly. I'm going out to dinner with him, and I'm going to talk to him about all this. He comes back down, and he's like, we're part of the team. Like, yeah, we're in. Yeah. And so I was concerned when Jon moved up to Montana.
Yeah.
And I remember having this discussion with you, what Matt Thornton was going to think of me.
Yeah.
Being 29 or 28 at the time.
Yeah.
And, I've been in business with Jon for 12 years or whatever. And so I had a video, a meeting with Matt Thornton. And he, surpassed all the things I thought about him. He super kind. Wanted to know about me, wanted to know about the business. Said that he trusted in the program that I have here. And the things that Jon had said, he was like, look, people who've been in business for 12 years, he's like, that's not common.
Yeah.
He's like, so that already tells me something about your character. And he goes, you don't have to worry about that. He's like, you're part of the team. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep running the police program. And basically welcome, or whatever. And so that was reassuring for me. And so that's how I became the owner and head instructor of SBG SoCal.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Because I always ask that a little bit, because I guess, it's been more common over the years for people to become SBG. And I was back there almost, I won't say back at the beginning, but, back when there was only a handful of SBG gyms. And I sort of saw the evolution, and especially when Travis kind of got more involved, and the evolution of the kind of the business side of SBG, but them also trying not to lose the essence of what SBG was always about. And I know Matt Thornton, I know he has high standards. You don't just become an SBG because you can pay. Yeah. There are places that are willing to, if you pay the affiliate, you can become it, right? And and that's not just in the BJJ or the fight world. That's all sorts of gyms. Some people will sell their soul. SBG's not like that, and I know that, and I respect that a ton. So it's interesting to kind of get that take, because like I said, I don't know fully how Matt thinks. I don't know him that well. We've met a few times, obviously seminars and things like that. Yeah. I think it's a very good. For me, the SBG things are good. For people that know it, it's a good badge of honor. If you're running your business through that, you've got something. Which is cool. Yeah.
And that's what Jon. That's why I was so worried, because Jon was like, I have to go up and meet Matt Thornton. He has to like our program, like us. He has to like us and make sure that we're a good fit for the team. And so I still get people that come in and they're like, from the old days, and like, oh, you're SBG now, so you're part of a franchise. I'm like, it's not a franchise. It's a team. It really is a team. Yeah. And obviously there are dues to be a part of the team, but it's not like other teams. Man.
But it's that's what kind of my point. It's not like you say. There's some way you could just pay. If you're willing to pay to have the franchise and the name, then it doesn't matter who you are. And SBG, I know, is not like that.
They've been more to really awesome through COVID. Super awesome. When the gym was making nothing and dues were due, they were like, make sure that your gym stays open. Take care of your staff. Take care of yourself. And we'll talk when things get better. And it's been great. It's been a godsend. It's
It's been, like I say, it's cool. It's been cool for me, to move to LA and be like, oh, there's an SBG not that far away. Because the first one
That's
I googled, the first one I googled, I thought you was a psycho when we first met.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Simply because we're all training, and in walks you, and everyone else is like maskless, and you're like, I'm rolling in a mask. And I'm like, are you?
Oh, you thought I was a psycho?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, are you slightly nuts? Like, you know how like hard it is to generally breathe anyway, and this is where the mask thing wasn't like. In the end, we all started wearing masks and training.
Yeah.
And you start to go, okay, there's a bit of a benefit to this. It's not easy, it's uncomfortable, but jiu-jitsu is fucking uncomfortable, right? So let's make it even more uncomfortable.
Yeah. Even when LA.
But I was rolling away with you, and I could hear you dying. Sometimes I was like, he's gonna have a fucking heart attack. I could tell you was young, months. But I was like, he's gonna have a heart attack if he keeps wearing this mask. But then you started getting fitter and fitter. And
now I'm like the Terminator.
Yeah. So
now when the mask comes off, I feel like I could go forever.
But I was respect. I was like, after every roll, I was like, man, I don't know how you're doing that. And then obviously we ended up all doing it. So
So for those of you who don't know, I got my black belt in Jiu-Jitsu in March of this year, 2021. And I had a meeting with Matt Thornton because I was initially supposed to get my black belt in December of 2019. Jon Bond and my instructor, Professor Matt Parks, had pushed it to May because Matt Thornton was supposed to come in for a seminar. But
so many things were getting pushed.
But we closed in March because of COVID. So then my black belt got put on indefinite hold. So then I got to the point where Jon Bond's in Montana. Matt Parks is not coming in because of COVID and because of restrictions and because he's broken because he had a hip replacement. And so it got to the point where I was like, okay, well, Jon Bond says I'm a black belt and I should have gotten it already. Matt Parks is like, what's going on? So I just called Matt Thornton and had this meeting with him, and he was like, I said, do you want me to wait for you, or is it okay that Matt Parks gives me my black belt with your authority? Like, what is it that you want to do? He goes, what do you want to do? And I was like...
Which is always an awkward question to
answer. He was like, I'm totally cool with you getting it from Matt Parks with, like, under, SBG black belt. And I was like, let's do that. And then I was like, now what about Jon Bond? He goes, do you think he's ready? And I was like, yeah, I think he's ready. We've been training, like, same amount of time. We're, like every round you and I are like submission for submission and technique for technique, and I'm like, he's probably one of the only people at the gym where I really felt challenged by, and I felt is like either equal with me on some days or better than me on others. And I told Matt, I was like, it would be unjust for me to leave him at black belt, but I'm not a first or second degree, so I can't promote him. I said, could I promote him with your blessing after I get my black belt? And he was like, yeah, that sounds good to me. As long as it's okay with him, that it comes from you. And I had that discussion with you like a month before that you were like, look, whenever it comes, you're like, it's cool if it's under you, under Matt Thornton.
It's SBG, right?
It's SBG.
So I know the whole thing. The whole thing's a big umbrella, and I know, like I say, Matt Thornton does not promote people easily. So I know it has to go through and all that. So
I told him I'll have Matt Parks there, and also you and I have become very close. Like we're very good friends now. And I've gotten a lot of good like advice from you, both on the mats and off the mats when it comes to business. And I run things by you because I trust your opinion, and I think very highly of you, not only as a train partner, but also as a peer on the mats and as one of my coaches now. And so it was a really big honor for me to present you with a black belt right after I got mine.
Yeah, it was the most bizarre scenario.
Yeah, it was
cool.
It was
really
and
cool.
It's not traditionally done like that because Matt Thornton's up in Portland, and because of COVID, times are strange. But it was a huge honor for me to be like, okay, this. I mean, it was a big day for me, but I'm not the type of person to have like all the spotlight on
also,
me.
for you to even share the day was like you didn't have to do that, right? You could have quite easily done it a month later.
Yeah.
And or whatever you wanted to do. So even just to share your day, because I knew your journey was pretty special to me, I was like, you know what, this guy's cool. Like he could have quite easily kept this day about himself, and you chose not to. That's character, right?
That's what the
not
gym's
a lot of
about.
people would have done. Yeah, no, absolutely. I just I know human beings, I know people, and I still wouldn't even call that selfish. You've worked a long fucking time to have that one day where it's about you, right? So I would not begrudge that from anybody.
Yeah.
But the fact that I don't think it even crossed your mind, meant a lot to me, because I was like, okay, he's happy to share his day, and I know what it meant to you. So I'm forever grateful to that.
Man. Yeah.
Alrighty. Before I get emotional, we should probably
I think that was the most emotional I saw was on on the black belt. What are you gonna say, John? You're like, it took a long time. Thank you.
I just fucking didn't know what to say. I was like, I've got like 15 years of whatever.
That's how I felt
and
too.
I was a bit like, I don't know what to say. And and also like as always, 15 years of training with different people. Like obviously, I've been here probably about a year. So there's everyone on the mat I knew and respect and knew well, but you've got years worth of people to sort of semi-thank for my whole journey. Past coaches, past training partners, people that are key to my progression, leading right up to, you know, the last year, which is all this and all SBG and everyone I appreciate here. But it's hard. So I'm looking at a sea of people and I'm kind of like, right, well, I want to thank you lot. But if I start going on about all these other people that you've got no idea about, then I'm just going to waste my breath and energy. So it's just like it's just difficult to come up with what to say. But you know, you plan these things in your head, and if it ever happens, and we have this big speech, and my speech was very much like, I don't know, thank you. Yes. And we're in masks. Your
Facebook post said it all. So.
Yeah, no, last I had to go back and think and get a beer down me and be like, right, okay. Now I can be emotional.
The pressure was that I've always felt having you as a student was, can I live up to these awesome coaches that you've had in the past, and am I doing you justice by promoting you now? And when I felt that you were ready, alongside myself, and when I talked to Matt Thornton about it, he was like, no, Jon Bond's a great guy. He's been training a long time. Jiu-Jitsu's good. Like, if you feel he's ready, it's your school. Do it. And it was cool.
Oh, I appreciate good coaches. I don't, you know, even when we were training and things like that, like it doesn't cross my mind. Yeah, I knew you were junior black belt anyway, but it didn't cross my mind 1 minute that when John left, you're taking over as a brown belt to run the school. And things like that. You know, people have these things, and look, obviously you want your school to have a black belt, and you certainly would have, you know, you wouldn't have took it on as a blue belt and been head coach, right? You'd be going out there looking for a black belt. But for me, I just look at who's a good coach. Like, the way you break detail down, the way you go into things is as good as, you know, most of the coaches I've had. So it's not, and you know, whether the overall skill level, experience, knowledge on the mat, and all these other things that some of the older guys will bring. That's time, that's experience for you to gain. But as far as breaking down the techniques, and like I say, as far as I'm concerned, you know me, I love simple stuff. So you start teaching anything remotely complicated, and I'm kind of like, it's going to be difficult for me today. So I've grown up with the SBG foundations. Basics. I don't care what belt level you are, you're drilling the basics. So I'm drawn to that style of training and learning and drilling. So for me, it was just this seamless transition. John was doing that, you were doing the same. You know, been out in Australia with Ben Power. His was very similar, you know, very different but very similar in the methodology that was taught. Obviously I was SBG Manchester for years, so for me it's SBG, it's the methodology, and if I like the coach and respect the way they're teaching, then the levels and all this other stuff doesn't I'm not interested. I'm here to be on the mat as a student. I'm still a student as far as I'm concerned. Like, I would love to potentially, you know, coach jiu-jitsu like consistently all the time, but
the classes that you have done, I love.
I love the art for different reasons as well, and the time it would take me to it. I'd have to completely submerge, do what you've done, and just have it almost a jiu-jitsu only school, and build the MMA in. Having everything I've got, it's too much for me to then just jump on the mat and coach classes. I respect coaching too much to jump on the mat at the end of a long day, having done a million other fucking things, and be like, okay, what are we coaching tonight? It's not how you run a BJJ school, and I know that. So until and if I am ever ready to submerge myself fully in a BJJ only school, I wouldn't disrespect the art by being a head coach.
Well, I mean, I'd
rather be on the mat learning.
We've talked about certain business opportunities that we might have together. So.
I have no doubt within the next couple of years, as things settle down a little bit and we get everything to where things need to be, I think there's an expansion plan in our future without a doubt.
Yeah, man.
Exciting. Cool. Right. Pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That was awesome.
Leave it there.